There's this thing that happens when you're older. You'll be driving somewhere, nowhere important, and you'll pass a place that shouldn't mean anything anymore. And for a second, everything goes quiet, because you remember, right there, where that empty lot is now, there used to be lights, music, crowds. There was a park there, your park. And the strange part is, nobody remembers when it closed. No final night, no last ride, no goodbye. Just one day, the music stopped. 40 years ago, this was one of the loudest places in America. Now it's just trees, concrete, and something people drive past without ever noticing. But if you look closely, you can still see what's left of it. And tonight, we're going back. Because some places don't disappear by accident. They're forgotten on purpose. Before Disney. Before Six Flags. Before every thrill ride came with a corporate sponsor and a $25 souvenir photo you didn't ask for, there was something else. Something smaller. Something local. Something that belonged to you. Go back to 1955 for a moment. Television is brand new. The suburbs are being built faster than anyone can name the streets. The interstate highway system is just a blueprint on somebody's desk in Washington. And American families, working-class families, middle-class families, families who'd survived a depression and 2 wars and were finally exhaling. Those families needed somewhere to go on a Saturday afternoon. Not somewhere far. Not somewhere expensive. Somewhere close enough that Dad could pile everyone into the station wagon after lunch and have you home before dark. That place existed. Hundreds of them, actually. They were called regional amusement parks. And from the 1950s through the early 1980s, they were the beating heart of American summer. Every major city had one. Most mid-sized cities had 2. Some small towns had one so close to the edge of the county line that you could hear the roller coaster from your bedroom window on a hot July night. Riverview Park in Chicago. Euclid Beach in Cleveland. Palisades Park in New Jersey. The same park Chuck Berry wrote a song about in 1962, which tells you exactly what kind of cultural gravity these places had. Kennywood outside Pittsburgh. Canobie Lake in New Hampshire. Joyland in Wichita. Liberty Land in Memphis. Wonderland Park in Amarillo. These weren't Disney. They weren't trying to be. They were yours. They were built by local businessmen who lived in your city, hired your neighbors, and ran the same wooden coaster for 40 years because the people who rode it as kids kept bringing their own kids back to ride it again. The admission was cheap because it was designed to be cheap. A few dollars at the gate. A booklet of ride tickets. A hot dog that cost too much and tasted exactly right. That was the deal. And for a long time, it was a perfect one. The post-war boom didn't just build highways and ranch houses. It built a new kind of American leisure. For the first time in a generation, people had weekends. Real ones. 2 days that belonged to them, not to the factory, not to the farm. And they wanted to spend them somewhere that felt alive. Regional parks had actually existed since the late 1800s. Built at the end of trolley lines by streetcar companies trying to drum up weekend ridership. But in the 1950s and 60s, they transformed into something different. Something louder. Something with neon. The baby boomers hit these parks like a wave. 60 million kids born between 1946 and 1964, all of them reaching their prime amusement park years at the same time. By 1965, attendance figures at regional parks across the country were staggering. Riverside Park in Massachusetts was pulling over 1 million visitors a year. Pontchartrain Beach in New Orleans was a city institution as essential as Mardi Gras. In Cincinnati, Coney Island, the real Coney Island, the original one sitting right on the Ohio River, was so crowded on summer weekends that the parking situation required its own management system. These parks understood something that the industry would eventually forget. Proximity is magic. You didn't need the world's tallest roller coaster. You needed the roller coaster you could see from the highway on the way to your grandmother's house. The one that looked terrifying from the parking lot and felt exactly that terrifying on the ride. The one where you screamed until your throat hurt and stumbled off the platform and immediately got back in line. Summer had a rhythm in those years, and the regional parks set the tempo. Memorial Day was when they opened. Labor Day was when they closed. And everything in between, those hot, loud, sunburned weeks, belonged to the park. You wore cutoffs and sneakers. You came with $1.50 and stayed until closing. You ate cotton candy that turned your tongue blue and played skee-ball until you had enough tickets for a prize that broke before you got home. You rode the tilt-a-whirl and felt like the world was ending in the best possible way. And it all cost about what your dad made in 2 hours at the plant. That was the miracle of it. It was democracy in motion. Rich kids, working-class kids, all of them melted together on the same midway, chasing the same games, screaming on the same rides. By 1970, regional amusement parks were embedded in the DNA of American childhood so deeply that nobody thought to question whether they'd always be there. That's how you know something is truly part of the culture. You stop noticing it. It's just there. The way summer is just there. The way the smell of sunscreen and funnel cake is just summer. The parks weren't just entertainment, they were community. Every city that had one built an identity around it. Families made annual pilgrimages. Couples had first dates on the Ferris wheel. Teenagers spent entire summers working the food stands and game booths, pocketing cash and learning how the world works and falling in love between shifts. The park was where your town went to be itself. And then, around 1971, something changed. Walt Disney World opened in Orlando, Florida. 55 square miles of engineered fantasy, air-conditioned queues, themed lands, and a level of operational polish that made every other park in America look a little scruffier by comparison. In the short term, it didn't kill the regional parks. Most of them were still thriving well into the late 70s. But Disney had quietly reset America's expectations. People started asking questions that hadn't occurred to them before. Questions like, why doesn't this park have a monorail? Questions like, why is the paint peeling on the funhouse? The bar had moved. And moving it had cost $400 million. Most regional parks didn't have $400 million. What they had was a wooden coaster that was 60 years old, a midway that needed repaving, and an insurance policy that was about to get very expensive. Because something else was happening in America during the 1970s. Liability law was changing. Personal injury lawsuits against amusement parks began climbing. Maintenance costs on aging infrastructure, those beautiful, creaky, irreplaceable wooden rides, became staggering. What had once been charming became a legal exposure. And the cities those parks sat in were changing too. Urban neighborhoods were hollowing out. White flight was accelerating. The working-class families who'd been the park's core audience were moving to suburbs farther and farther from the city's old recreational geography. The park was still where it had always been. The people weren't. The closures didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about slow erasure. You don't feel it until it's over. Riverview Park in Chicago closed in 1967. Palisades in New Jersey in 1971. Euclid Beach in Cleveland in 1969. Pontchartrain Beach in New Orleans survived until 1983. Riverside in Massachusetts hung on until 1975. One by one, through the late 60s, the 70s, and into the 80s, the lights went out. Some parks were sold to developers who built shopping malls on the land. Some burned down under circumstances that raised eyebrows in the neighborhood. Some simply locked the gates one September after Labor Day and never unlocked them again, leaving the rides to rust slowly through the winters until the demolition crews arrived. A few survived by reinventing themselves. Kennywood is still operating. Cedar Point in Ohio turned itself into a destination park and became one of the most famous in the world. Nobles in Pennsylvania kept the old model alive with almost stubborn devotion. Still free admission, still tickets, still the same ethos. And people drive hours to get there specifically because of what it preserves. But most of them? Gone. What was lost wasn't just a place. It was a ritual. It was the proof that your city valued joy. That someone had decided, generations ago, that regular people deserved somewhere beautiful to spend a summer afternoon. That the price of admission should be within reach of the family who was stretching every dollar. We don't really build things like that anymore. What we build now are experiences, monetized, optimized, VIP tiered. You can still feel wonder at a modern theme park, but you feel it at the park the way you feel wonder at a luxury hotel. From the outside of it, at a careful, expensive distance, the old parks let you in, all the way in. In the gate, into the noise, into the music, into the crowd, right up next to the thing that delighted you. That intimacy cost almost nothing. That's why it's irreplaceable. Somewhere in America right now there is a parking lot. And underneath that parking lot, underneath the asphalt and the faded lot lines, there are still the foundations of a roller coaster. The concrete piers that held up something magnificent, something loud, something that made children scream with joy on summer evenings while their parents sat on benches in the warm air and felt, for just a few hours, like everything was going to be okay. You can't see it, but it's there. And if you grew up near one of these parks, if you can still feel the sticky grip of a ride handle under your palm, still hear the mechanical clatter of a chain lift pulling you toward the sky, still taste the specific sweetness of park stand lemonade, then it never really left. It just got quiet. And maybe that's the truest thing about the places we lose. They don't disappear. They go underground. They live in the muscle memory of everyone who was ever there. In the way your stomach still drops a little when you crest a hill too fast on the highway. In the way you'll be driving somewhere nowhere important, and you'll pass an empty lot, and for just a second, everything goes quiet. Because you remember. If this brought back something you thought you'd forgotten, share this video. There's somebody in your life who needs to remember too. And if you're new to the Nostalgia Vault, subscribe. Because we're just getting started. Where every decade gets its story told. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because every week we go back to the places, the moments, and the memories that made America what it was. And if your city had a park like this, drop the name in the comments. Tell us what you remember, because these places deserve to be remembered. Every single one of them.